is our 10th annual CHIVR. CHIVR stands for Chicago Virtual Reality, and we are the largest VR meetup in the Midwest. We've got about 1,000 members. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight. So we are actually hosting our 1-year anniversary in August 30th, Wednesday at Leo Burnett's StarCom on Wacker. It'll be a huge space. We'll do something very special. We're going to have a giveaway as well, so make sure you make it out. Follow us on Meetup, CHIVR, also Pryde, Facebook. We've got all the different channels, but we'll talk about that afterwards. Without ado, I'm going to introduce Mitch. Thank you so much for having us here at TangoCode. I'm going to hand it off to you so you can tell me a little bit more about what you do here.
Perfect. First of all, welcome to TangoCode. Glad you guys made it all the way out. Hopefully you guys didn't get lost. We hope to be having a few more of these events. This is the first time we're hosting CHIVR. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background on us, and then I have a small ask, and then I'll pass it on. But basically, TangoCode, we work with digital marketers. We are sort of the go-to for partners like Google, for companies and who are trying to get into the digital marketing space. But in other cases, for agencies, we are sort of like back of house, marketing automation, how they get work done, everything from workflow to campaigns, how they place campaigns to reporting, the big problem. We do custom software development for agencies that are experiencing growing pains or trying to seek differentiation. So if you know of agencies that are in the digital marketing space that you know are growing and are looking for some differentiation, we're a good person to chat with. And then also, we are getting involved in just digital marketing, digital transformation for companies who are trying to sort of reinvent themselves, large companies in town that you can imagine, publishers, newspapers. And so we're sort of seen as the how do we break into this market of this realm of digital marketing. And so anyways, if you have any of those suggestions for us to talk to, we would love to talk to them. And in the meantime, I want to pass the panel.
I'm actually going to hold on to this mic. Matt, you've got the mic, so I'm going to hand it off to Henry. Tell us a little bit more about your demo and what you're doing here.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Henry Kaiser. I'm co-founder CEO of Pryde VR, formerly CHIVR. Well, if you come see us tonight, we'll give you a business card that says CHIVR because they haven't printed the Pryde ones yet. But to talk a little bit about what we do. Many of the people in the room are in the VR industry. We were not initially. We've done some VR work, but we went out and we spoke with a lot of you guys developers just to understand what your day-to-day was like, to understand, was there something out there we could solve? I'm always a problem first, a product person, like what's the problem we can maybe solve for you guys? And we ended up hearing from a lot of people, many of whom were in this room, which is how hard it is to communicate what it's like to be in virtual reality to someone who's not in the headset. How hard it is to make a video showing off, presenting, what it really is for your application, your environment, for your user, when the best stuff out there is a whole hassle and not particularly pleasing to look at. And so hopefully you'll come by us. We made a plugin that we have an MVP version that's ready to provide to people. And you can drop it into your code in about 60 seconds. It's plug and play within Unity, basically. And it'll empower every user that you have, including yourself or your own marketing material, to say out loud, start recording, stop recording, and a video will be automatically sent to social media. And so it's unlisted if you're worried about your testing and whatnot. But of course, that means that every player you have can begin grassroots marketing, the excitement they have for your game, presenting it to people who are your next customers realistically. And we just really want to make sure that the best of VR is presented to people who don't understand what it is yet. We absolutely believe in the work that you guys are doing. Like I said, we don't make VR products, we're making tools for you guys. We want to really help you guys show off to the world that doesn't understand what VR is yet, what you guys have to offer. So come see us, myself, Shannon, who will raise his hand right here in a second. Find one of the two of us will happily give you a demo of Pryde VR. So thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. Alan, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, I'm the CTO of ZoopTEK and founder. ZoopTEK started in 1999 around what you now would call like an esports game called Paintball 3D Stream. We are now doing a modern rendition of esports that allows you to compete on any device, including VR. It's called Nightlight. But today I'm actually here with another game called Super Cat Herding, which is this ridiculous game, as the name implies, where you give cats superpowers in VR. So I'm the type of, I'm the company that he's marketing for. PewDiePie played Super Catering. So I'm just a game developer.
Awesome,
Really
Matt.
fun game. You can go try it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think.
Can't wait.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, okay. All right, there we go. Hi, my name is Matt. I'm the president and CEO of Dome 3D. We're a immersive media company based out in Elmhurst, and we do everything from full dome programming for planetariums, mobile domes, and do a lot of 360 video capture. We do live experiences. We do a lot of partnering with various companies such as Vantage TV and Concept VR, producing both live and post-produced pieces.
Thanks, Matt. Curtis.
I'm Curtis Schmidt. I am the lead director of post-production and also VR at Quriosity. And then also I'm the creator and director of a VR experience called Run Silent.
Can you guys hear him? Yeah, quiet.
Oh, check.
There we go.
Okay.
Say one more time.
I am the director of post-production and also VR at Quriosity. We have a group set up back there that you'll be able to see a little bit more of what we do. But then also I am creator and director I'm creator and director of a VR app that's in pre-production called Run Silent VR, where we've gotten interest from companies like Apple. We have the DP of Avatar involved to create a tribute to World War II submarine crews.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the intros. We do have a lot of CEOs and founders here on this panel today, which kind of segues into, you have a project idea in the VR space. How do you go from start to finish of funding it, getting the right sponsors, getting the right team together to make it work? So the topic of entrepreneurship and launching a project from start to finish. Before we segue into that, raise your hands if you're currently working on a VR project right now. Oh, wow. So majority of the room, content creators. It's wonderful. And who here has launched a startup or their own company? Raise your hands. Awesome, very cool. So there are definitely a lot of influencers in the house, and that way you guys can share ideas. Our whole mission with CHIVR is to bring the VR community together. So I started CHIVR and Dan in August, the original founders right over there. We started this about almost a year ago, and our mission is always bring the VR community together for big ideas. So it's great to have you guys here to share what you guys are doing in the Chicagoland area. So on that note, Mitch, tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurial experience, with TangoCode or even before.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to do my best to just sort of just answer the question of what steps you should consider when you're endeavoring on going on much better on the sort of entrepreneurial journey, and it's often actually what we're doing here at TangoCode, where we're making an effort to validate that our assumption of what we think is a value that we create is actually perceived as such in the market, and the best way of getting the validation is someone pays you. So you're trying to make it as easy as possible for someone to give you that validation, but not every idea can get that level of validation earlier in the context. So what you try to do is you try to make sure that you're constructing all the effort that you're putting, which means you should focus on trying to validate if you have a problem or a level of interest, like if it's a game or something like that. Just anything you can do that gives you a proxy, specifically for what your idea. It's great if what you're creating is already out there and it's proven that there's people who like cat games. That's probably a little bit easier for you to then not have to worry so much about the consumer demand, but maybe validate. But there's plenty of things you probably do have to validate. How are you going to go to market? How are you going to actually get your first customers? And how are you going to grow that? Or how are you going to grow what you feel is unique about your content in some unique way? And then you're trying to structure the things you go into work every day to try to prioritize a few key things that then are just checking the boxes of what assumptions you have that are critical for you to scale, because those are the questions that an investors are going to ask, especially Chicago investors, which are more interested in, can this business scale? and by scale, in their minds, most of it has to be revenue scale, because there's not a lot of business to consumer type investment in Chicagoland, unfortunately. But there are some in the angel community. You gotta hunt for them. But that's what you're doing. You're trying to validate a problem, then validate your solution. You're trying to do it in as easiest manner as you can, and then only build enough of your team and or your product to help get you there. It's very easy to fall in the trap of overbuilding because you can, and no one's trying to question whether you can build something. In fact, that should be not what you need to worry about. What people should question is, have you de-risked this idea for yourself and for everyone else on your team? Because you as a founder have to really do honor for everyone you're getting involved in your project, to that you are being fiscally responsible for the time and effort that they're putting into it. And it's very easy to get consumed in passion projects. I've been on the board of 3 film nonprofits, and I've worked with many filmmakers who don't care about the finance piece. They need to make this film regardless. And I see a lot of parallels when I meet with more of the sort of the entertainment oriented, like this is just so amazing and so cool. And sometimes yes, but how many great startups have you seen that start off with entertainment, but then listen to the customers, find the pain point, and then switch? Slack, Flickr. I'm sure you guys could probably mention a whole bunch of. What I like about the sort of the gaming and the creative space is early innovation happens there, that they started there, but they end up pivoting somewhere else, and you end up doing kind of more like what he does. You find problems that that are universal, and you end up being tools for the other makers. But sometimes you have a hit in and of yourself. So that would be my recommendation, is just be very judicious about how you're thinking about the problem that you're solving, and that you're really validating, and you're building an organization and or your team that's validating learning, and then only going forward as you go forward, because you can get very caught up in the story and or the idea, the press you may have gotten, and easy to lose sight of like how we're going to pay the bills.
And on that note, Alan, you just got funded, right?
We're working on it.
You're working on it, yeah. Who has been funded on this panel right now? Anyone right now that's...
I'm trying to keep investors on my ass at the moment.
Okay, cool. Speaking of investors, let's talk about that. Alan, why don't you kind of round up on that?
By the way, I relate to almost every single thing you mentioned there. Being a game company, obviously the passions are what gets going. I could respond to many similar points, but particular to our investing process, it's ridiculous, but it's true. It's kind of like dating.
I know exactly what you're about to say, so go ahead. Last time we were kind of looking for investors. We were essentially told you have to release more stuff, which is fine. That's what we do. So we were working on super cat herding, and we did a show in Austria for our esports game. And we weren't even like looking for investors. It was a random connection with, I'm supposed to be vague, I'll just say a media company. Heard about our esports game. They're like, well, we need eyeballs. So if you're making esports and there's going to be 300 million players looking at esports now, wouldn't it be nice if we had esports underneath our viewership? And so that's how that worked out. So we're talking with them. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it'll work out. But they like the idea of the synergy of, well, he has experience. He's gone to Austria. He showed this game off. People seem to like it. He has a unique angle on it. So the evidence I need to provide is, can I expand? Can I grow fast enough? Can I actually capture some of those 300 million eyeballs and eventually divert it for the media who they care about?
Curtis?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think the biggest thing about funding that I was under the wrong idea of was the fact that I thought, okay, well, if I have my idea, that then I just go to investors, I present them with the idea, and then it happens. And that is not at all the case. However, I now understand why good ideas get funded, because I felt like the thing that I needed to do with Run Silent was I've been now talking with people for the past couple of years, and it's all been these amazing steps. First of all, you know, the idea of the project got accepted into the Sundance New Frontiers Festival, and that was amazing, and that was great. But then that wasn't enough, and for what it is that we wanted to do, we had to do more. And so we kind of kept talking with new partners, new people. That's how Apple got involved. That's how the DP of Avatar got involved. And it then turns into something now that we've been approached by angel investors that are like, this is amazing, and we have a whole group, and we want to make this one of like our big kind of projects that we want to push out to a whole group of people. And I wouldn't have found that if I would have just said, here's my idea, and then somebody in Chicago invested in it. It was more of like, I had to believe in this idea so much that it not just took me through Chicago, but then to LA, but then like internationally, that now I'm like, well, clearly people into it. It was a good idea. So I would never be afraid of the journey that it's going to take, but just understand that whatever that VR thing is, I can't tell you how many people are like, well, I have a great idea. It's about something. And it has to be about more than something. I mean, it has to be either something within you that you see more in it than they do, but it's a long process even to get to the point where you're funded. And I think
yeah, I don't disagree with anything so far. One of the things I would add on to that, to tie off an analogy you said, and I'm going to leap off of something that you said, which was, you mentioned that courting a VC is kind of like dating, and the way that I would tie that up is to say, they're interested in you when you're not looking. Basically, when you're taken, when you don't need money, of course, they're excited to know what you're working on, and you know, I talk to investors all the time, and the big thing there being, you want to make sure you have a relationship with them well before you are looking for money. The second part to that to say, though, is that they invest in your idea, but more importantly, they invest in you. You can have a great idea, but it's going to be, you know, who are you? Are you the person who's going to execute on it? Are you the person who's going to be reliable? Are you going to be there for me when I'm sick? Are you going to be there for me to get it done? Are you going to keep working through the snow and the wind? And the only way that you can prove that, you can provide any degree of trust before they've, you know, really gotten to know you on that first date, if you will, is to have made something, is to have something that you can show that it doesn't need to be a finished product. It doesn't even need to be like an MVP. It just needs to be something that you can show I've done a prototype test or whatnot. And I was giving a workshop just the other day to some like 18-year-old kids who want to start their own companies. And not to say that I'm all too more experienced than they are, but I've at least been working for a decade and change. The thing I told them was that the key, you know, what resources do you have right now? And I got $1,000 in my pocket, or I've got this, or I've got that. So the number one resource that you absolutely need to have is expertise in what you are working on, who their user is, who your customer is, why they're going to buy it, the entire market environment. And you can do that without having a dime in your pocket. And if you approach an investor and are able to present that I have an idea, it's driven by this, and I know every aspect of this backwards and forwards, because you've actually legitimately, I mean, I think I can swear a little bit, like you've gone the fuck outside and talked to people. You didn't just sit in a room and brainstorm it, but you went out and you did the legwork. An investor is far more interested to talk to you because they know that you've punched more holes in your idea than they have even begun to understand. That's what they're going to be excited about. And so the biggest thing I can always is push on that is beyond knowing what your problem is, it's getting the fuck outside and having that key resource of expertise, of knowledge of what you're trying to do, and that you've made something that goes along with that when you're presenting who you are to the investor.
That's why we do have the demos set up. So once we're done with the panel, we have various locations in the room that you can walk around, try the demos, and please do try them, especially if you haven't tried VR in the first place, because it'll give them beta testing for what they're working on. Matt, a little insight on your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a little bit of a different situation just because I'm completely self-funded. You know, I've been bootstrapped, you know, for the past 10 years. And my position is, again, kind of unique because I was moving from a regular time gig where I had a certain skill set and I was able to apply that to starting my own business. And I had clients literally the day I left my regular job. I had people calling me from all over the world for planetarium gigs, for content creation gigs, and that eventually transitioned into getting more into VR and 360 video. So I've been lucky enough where I haven't needed VC money. I haven't needed a partner to say, here's a wad of cash, go continue. I've just been lucky enough to continuously have clients and have just, I'll say dumb luck, where you know, it's been a good ride so far, and I just hope it continues.
Wonderful. I actually want to. We usually do questions at the end, but I want the questions to be relevant to, you know, any kind of challenges you guys see, or any questions specific to starting your own startup or business, or promoting a product. So I want to open up to the audience. Please, somebody raise your hand. What are you doing over there in the red?
So Curtis mentioned he's working on a submarine project, so that's a cool idea. I thought of it myself too, and I think it's an interesting project that's a part of like this bigger VR museum idea where people get to experience history in VR. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering if you can speak to that, and what do you see development, you see that field, difficulties and potential.
I mean, I think that.
If you could repeat the question a little louder.
Yeah. Here, actually, let me hand you the microphone because there was a few different ports to that.
Yeah. So I was saying Curtis is working on this cool idea of a submarine project where he pays tribute to the crews of submarines in the Second World War. Is that correct? Yeah. So I think that's a part of a bigger idea where of a VR museum where people basically get to experience different aspects of history and VR, and I was just wondering if that's a big market, what's the potential in it, what's the difficulties?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that in that whole market that I've realized is both a benefit but also a drawback is the fact that museums, just that whole group, generally they move much slower than everybody else. So I think that when you're looking for something like that, of building out the experience, it's very specific to what it is. Now, if you want to work with museums to build something like that, just plan that you'll have a simple idea that's going to take you 3 to 5 years when you could have probably, with VC money, get it done in about 6 months. But the thing is that beyond that, you have to look at the idea of, okay, submarines, World War II sounds like a great idea, but what is it specifically? What's the story that I'm trying to tell even within that? Within that, I mean, I've been speaking to veterans for now 2 years, and there's about 90 great stories that I've heard, but what is the story? You still have to have a viewpoint in what it is that you're trying to convey. So before you go to the thing of just subject matter, and that's great to work with museums, it would more be like, figure out what that interaction the user has with the story you're trying to tell, and then you start thinking about bigger picture.
On that note, Matt, you've had experience with planetarium. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, I mean, the planetarium world is interesting. And like Curtis says, I mean, things when it comes to museums and nonprofits do tend to move a little bit slower. They've got their budgets and their cycles and all that kind of stuff. So they're always interested in partnering with people that have great ideas, and they're hoping that you're willing to do it for free because that's what nonprofits like to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're passionate about a project, go for it. It's just one of those things where it's totally different than the commercial entities out there that will be looking for, okay, how are you going to make money off of it? How are we going to benefit from this? The nonprofit worlds will just kind of, okay, we'll take this and we'll take your idea and okay, give us some more and so on and so forth. So I would just say that's one thing just to be aware of when you're working on a project like that.
Awesome. Questions? Right over here.
What do you find to be the most cost-effective or time-effective way? What do you find to be the most cost or time-effective way of testing a creative idea and finding out if it's viable or not?
Specifically for VR, for what?
Yeah, for most part.
Yeah, so I'm the guy around here I think is known for prototyping in a variety of weird ways. That's my primary answer right there. Is if you have an idea, my first thing I already brought up, get the fuck outside. And the reason is that's where people are. one of the phrases I've heard used over and over is that you are not your customer. No matter how much you think you're making a product that you would love, you need to understand the people who are maybe similar to you, who might be willing to pay for it, what's the actual reason that they're going to jump on it. And the way to validate that is through prototyping. It's through understanding what's the one thing I'm going to test this week or today or whatever your cycle time frame is, and figuring out how to optimize your test with the least amount of input. I've talked about how do you do that in virtual reality, a couple different events. The two that I go to that require no code and almost no setup is you can still do paper prototyping in VR, and what I generally tie that to then is a bit of acting. My background before I did anything in the tech space was I worked in film as a film guy, and I worked in the theater for many years doing immersive multimedia theater. And so, stuff you would do one-on-one, not one-on-one, but within close proximity. And virtual reality is an immersive experience. And with that in mind, you can paper out what your experience is going to be and bring in a couple actors to play NPCs or whatever you need to do and flush out an idea before you've even opened up Steam VR or anything else you intend to build, Unity or Unreal. It's that aspect of before you've wasted time building a thing, what can you do with like scraps just to see if people are even remotely interested? I don't disagree when it comes to like putting a production together that's going to be storytelling driven. You might need to do some more work with that, like an aspect of in theater, do a workshop, write out some of your story and begin to just craft what's going to be important about it. To go to your submarine experience, not every story is going to work necessarily in VR because it needs to embrace what's great about virtual reality, the immersive quality, the ability to empathize with someone in a way that other mediums can't fully embrace as effectively. You can try. I think Dunkirk is an amazing movie. I'm sure that's got the empathy built right in a variety of ways. If that was done in a virtual reality experience, now you've got, it might be more immersive, but now you've got other ethical issues that even go with that. So you have to figure out how you're going to balance all these varieties of things. But the way you're going to have to validate these things is doing it before you've picked up a camera, before you've written a line of code. If you're prototyping now, like environments, Google Tilt Brush, Google Blocks, the new product that just came out, you can draft up a virtual reality environment with I'm not a Unity guy. I made like a small town in Google Blocks in like an afternoon. You can do those things and at least like hand over the headset to somebody and be like, what does this make you feel like? Or just trying to figure out what your aspect is there. But figure out how you're gonna prototype so you can validate your ideas before you've really wasted money. That's the first thing I would say.
And Mitch, on that note, you work with a lot of different clients. Tell us a little bit more about testing in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, we actually do a concept called a design sprint, which is following Google's design sprint principle, where you're trying to get it's a great way to do brainstorming as in a very effective manner where no one monopolizes the conversation and you get a lot of ideas and you're able to iterate. But you're able to iterate, especially on the visual design, with a lot of input before even a visual design is put on paper. So you get a lot of those inputs like that I would imagine you would also use in a story structure or a creative concept, so that you kind of know what's important before you even go into it. Because otherwise you put a lot of it at work. Well, I was trying to get this feeling, like, well, if that feeling is not even relevant, like, oh shoot, I shouldn't have had to do all that extra effort because that wasn't the emotion that I wanted to get. If you get all this stuff up front, then you can start figuring out ways to what's the effective way to validate whether that was actually how they would either behave, or because other things in the VR, like you actually kind of want to sort of potentially model you want probably a certain type of behavior.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you want to try to orchestrate that a little bit with as you were mentioning, like and I don't know on the VR space how it actually would effectuate a prototype scenario, but for sure a lot of those inputs I think are overlooked that lead into story structure or how you want a user to behave in an environment, or in our cases, like how do you want them to use the screen and where do they get lost? Because same thing, you don't want a user probably to get lost. We don't want a user lost. It has to make obvious sense to them, and so you want to figure those things out, and you can do that really quickly with like paper prototypes. Like I vote, and it could be a scene structure, like, oh yeah, and you're like, wow, why did they put a sticker there? And then they talk to you like, well, I was doing this, and you're like, oh my god, so they had no clue that they weren't supposed to go there and they were supposed to go here. Yep. It's very simple, and you can get that done. You can do these things in like hours, not even super long. Within a week, you should know a lot before you be like, okay, I want you to design this. Like even have like a pre-prototype you can do with a whiteboard and exercise. I think it's phenomenal to give you insights that you just didn't even know that it will reframe how you even approach. But I do think that, and I haven't put my head on the VR space, but figuring out a path for how to prototype in VR, I gotta imagine that's probably almost a service in and of itself.
Can you talk about that a little bit more?
So my angle is going to be very different because I am a CTO. I do technology, and one of the things I'm praised for is my ability to prototype things super fast in code. Now it's not pretty. I mean, the original Super Catering was made in 48 hours, just white boxes, and then I just threw it on the internet, and that's where I got all my initial feedback. And in my case, I was lucky. I won the lottery and people seemed to like it. That on the flip side though, user interface has always been very troublesome. And it continues to be this day. If you come over there, I'm sure you'll have your own qualms with it. We added VR way later on. So originally Super Catering was just desktop and the YouTubers loved it. But then when we switched over to the VR, we tried to just, well, it's easy. Everyone liked the old UI, we'll just switch into VR, no problem. And alas, that didn't quite work. And you'll still see remnants this day of the old UI we're trying to fit it in there and it's not quite working. And as much as I would like to rely on my speed of coding and I can just prototype things really quickly. In this case, like now the product is much more progressed. It's much more mature. It's getting much harder for me to make rapid changes. This is not a white box anymore where I can just throw buttons around. It's, there's a lot more heft to it. So we are now suffering the problem of not designing earlier and, doing it in paper or finding other ways to get through many iterations without coding. So I mean, we're on Steam now, and those are some of our complaints. Like, oh, we can't find the cats. Well, we didn't think about that because people seem to be happy before, and we just put it in VR. So we made our own mistakes, and we're learning this day.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, to be fair, you launched before a lot of these lessons were learned in the VR space.
Oh, yeah,
you launched like a year ago.
Right.
We launched we launched only a few months into Steam VR's existence. So
yeah.
On that note, obviously what you are creating kind of leads into storytelling and having that concept for the users and the end users, which leads me into Curtis and Matt. You guys did a special presentation that I want to open up and have you guys share. We are running a little short in time, so
yes, I will make this quick.
Yes.
So initially we had this, and do we know?
We may have turned it off. I don't know.
So one thing really quick, I do apologize. I vowed that I would never put a word definition in my PowerPoint, and I did that tonight, and I'm sorry, but it made sense when I did it, so bear with me. Okay, so basically storytelling in VR, right? This is our usual storytelling arc, okay? So we have our beginning, our middle, and our end. Oh, sure. Yeah, I just might need to jump over. Okay, so we have our beginning, our middle, and our end, right, for any story. And I think that is always the biggest problem that people are trying to do with VR, is they're trying to make it, I mean, every bad VR experience that we've seen where a film comes out and they try to shoehorn that experience into a VR thing is horrible. So what I think that we need to do as VR storytellers is actually throw away that whole thing, much like if you're a photographer and you are a filmmaker. You guys share the love of a good picture, you guys share certain elements of understanding f-stops, but they're a different process. And I think that in order for us to really be good storytellers in VR, we need to throw away our idea of what filmmaking is. Okay. Oh. This is where I'm the asshole. Okay, so experience, and it doesn't really show up here, but basically it says practical contact with an observance of facts or events. And I think that is the biggest thing that when you're building a VR experience, that's really all it is. It is a quick contact with something that you don't know. And within that, much like every great experience you've had in life, every great concert, every great anything, it wasn't this, oh, I started out downtrodden, and then I made my way up, and then I was a hero at the end of the show. No, it was a very great experience that had kind of a straight line, but just for you to be experiencing that level of it for that little period of time was all that you needed. Slide. Okay, so these are, and I know there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are arguing with me in the back saying, well, actually, some of those have story. You're absolutely right. However, they didn't attract you there for the story. They didn't give you a paragraph that said, okay, you know what? You will be transported to a magical hedgehog's land that likes hugs, and that you'll get a hug at the end. That wasn't it was more of a thing. You saw that character, and then you saw the world that he created, and you're like, I'm for the first time in a cartoon world. Personally, me, on a side note, believe that VR was strictly created for Star Wars, huge Star Wars fanatic, and it's still waiting for that day when I can thanks. Okay, but all of these things exist with story, but mostly it's the experience that draws you to them. Obviously we have the displaced, we have refugees. This one, which did amazing at Sundance, called Mayubi, is where you are a family's helper robot. But none of these things were brought to you because of plot. Okay, so what I think it more is experience telling in VR as opposed to storytelling. Because that's really what it is. You can have the simple experience, but if you can formulate it well, then people will come. Okay, biggest question. Anything that you're formulating across the board, why am I here? The greatest thing about VR is that you don't need a giant arc of why you need to be here or what happens while you're here. What you do need to ask yourself is, why am I here and why is it important that I would bring someone here? There's paragraphs across the board on each one of these. You guys lucked out. Okay, so Apollo 11 that just came out was, in my experience, the best example of this. It had no giant ego about anything. Basically, if you haven't downloaded it, definitely do it. It is the best storytelling I've seen in an app. You, first of all, you sit in a room, you hear John F. Kennedy's speech, and then the rest of these things you can choose to interact or not. But for the first time, I saw how boring it was to get launched into outer space. And I could look behind me and be like, holy crap, there's no room in this thing at all. But it was like at the end of that, I walked away with this amazing understanding of what that entire process was like. So it's like no one wants to be thrown in the middle of a war other than submarines. I mean, nobody needs to be thrown in it, but just like this simple, beautiful thing was an incredible experience of like, I walked in their shoes for a week, and some of it was real time, and I'm like, wow, this is boring, but still, it made me understand the patience that's required to be an astronaut, not just what happens when Ron Howard directs it. Okay, so when you're designing stories or experiences or anything, I think that this holds true. Wait, hold on. Okay, well, let me illustrate it. Here's a circle, okay? Understand that if I'm telling a story, it's just like in real life. I mean, like I see some of our employees in the back. I don't see him looking to the back of the room at the wall going like, wow, this is amazing. He's pretty much keeping an eye at me. And so understand when you're building experiences, that's kind of the spectacle part. Now, beyond that, you can have things happen around you. I think one of the original virtual reality experiences was Tony and Tina's wedding. It was a play that came out where they had an idea to put you, as a viewer, you bought your ticket, and they put you in the middle of a real wedding with real people. And so just like that, it wasn't like there was this big giant plot. It was like there's all these great little storylines that were happening behind you and in back of you and in front of you. And it's like VR, you can use that experience. Understand that this is where you want all the big stuff to happen. But oh my gosh, the amount of fun that you can have with like this and this and this. And it doesn't have to mean anything, but all these little stories can kind of happen around you, which I think is great. Or think of an airport, same thing, all these little stories. So illustrating this idea when you're trying to concept it, this was come up by Jessica Brilhart, who works at Google, which I think is brilliant, where this is, okay, if you're looking at a story, this is kind of the Grand Canyon looking down on it, but she's looking at, these are my entry points, these are my exit points, understanding all of them are a journey, okay? So you take each one of these rings, once again, everything's cyclical. This is an old storyboard. I just had to put that in there. There was a whole other thing about this that was awesome, and I sounded brilliant. But this whole thing is that, so now understanding that, this was a storyboard done by a group called Secret Location that did a Sleepy Hollow experience. This was probably done a couple of years ago, but the way that they illustrated out their story was by drawing it out and actually charting the course of you as the viewer and what you're going to go through. Now, a way for you to do this on your own for any idea, and I think that this would probably hold true to games or anything else, is understanding that this is the way now in VR to storyboard, where you're still looking at the whole picture, but you're always focused on, okay, what is the main center of focus, and then what's the thing that I'm kind of looking behind. And I think that, you know, storyboarding as a filmmaker is always important. And when I saw this stuff, I was like, you still need to visualize your idea to someone else. And so that is all of the stuff that I put together talking about that.
Thank you, Curtis. Yeah, this one works a little better. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming in here and hanging out with us and learning a little bit more. I actually want to open it up to pitches, personal pitches. Obviously, we're here to share ideas and get help from the community. So I want to call on 2 to 3 individuals that are looking for help in the VR space. So Amy. I met Amy at a gallery event not too long ago, and she does amazing art, and she's looking to get into the art world more in the VR space. So Amy, why don't you come up and tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do?
Thank you, Elina, for inviting me to be here. My background is in mechanical engineering with fluid mechanics, and I have been painting on water. When people say, that's a crazy idea, why bother? So think about the progression of ideas. Initially, you paint on hard surface, right? Paper, silk, wall, canvas. And so I took a leap to start painting on the fluid surface, that's on water. And now my idea is to take it to another level, which will be painting in the air. And that brings to the virtual reality. I have no idea how to get it done. I have some idea in my head, but I'm not trained as an artist, so I have no skill in doing illustration. I'm looking to talk to people who kind of get it. I talked to a few people earlier, kind of get it, and looking for help. Thank you.
Awesome, Amy, thank you. Raise your hands. Who's working on a project and maybe needs a little insight? Come on up.
Alright, so I'm pretty excited by Curtis's project since, as I mentioned, I have thought about it myself. It's a very cool project to actually expose people to what it was like to participate in the war, which was obviously disastrous, and it's important to people to understand how disastrous wars are. And in that same vein, I was thinking about a project wherein a project that would help people visualize and understand what all those black and white pictures of the war mean and how they actually looked in the real world when it happened. and I was thinking about having a project that wouldn't be actually made in 3D, but actually would be filmed with a 3D camera on a spot somewhere, possibly even in the Chicago area, where the user would get to experience what it was like to participate in a training camp, whatever, of the Second World War. And we actually do have a lot of equipment from that period here in Chicago, or in its neighborhood. There's a lot of tanks and that kind of thing that are probably not too difficult to rent. So yeah, I was just thinking about this project, and I was thinking if anybody has any insight, any ideas, or maybe it just wouldn't work. If you think that, just let me know whatever you think.
Thank you. Kyle, if you want to come up. I'm really fascinated about holograms in general, and Kyle kind of piqued my interest, so. Yeah.
Actually, that's not quite.
I know.
I want to talk to you about, because it gets back to volumetric displays. I'm an immersive media artist. I recently started working in virtual reality and augmented reality and projection mapping and all these space-defining systems that build out an experience for storytelling. And one thing I started playing with in mixed reality was how do you get people into the place that they need to be for your audience to see them? And none of the tools for fixing anything to your camera were good. So I'm actually working on something. If anyone plays with mixed reality and wants a free version of it, I've got all the files, but this is a Vive holster. It mounts a controller to any 1/4-inch adapter. It comes in a few different sizes. So if anyone needs to, I know trackers exist, they're big, but like I've got more Vives than trackers. So like I'm not gonna spend money on trackers if I can just mount controllers to things. Yeah, I'd like to get this in a couple people's hands, get feedback, see how people sort of play with it, because some of them I know mounted it to a helmet. And I was like, I would have never thought about that. So yeah, if you see me poking around, yeah, hit me up if you want to talk. Putting things in boxes or just getting people in different spaces, like that's what I'm interested in. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. On that note, so follow us on Slack, the Slack channel. August, if you want to raise your hand. Talk to, yeah, really quick shout out. We'll be wrapping up in 2 minutes. Almost done.
Hey guys, I'm August. I'm one of the founders of CHIVR. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you, TangoCode, for hosting. And thank you, Blue Plate, for catering, giving us this nice spread. So we do have a Slack channel. If you want to keep the conversation going and you want to invite to the Slack channel, just shoot me an email. It's august@chivr.org, CHIVR.org. Shoot me an email. I'll make sure you get on the Slack channel. And again, thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it.
If you guys have a really cool space and you want to host the next CHIVR, come talk to me, Elina, and we can chat about the deets. I'm going to hand it off to David, who has a very special gift for everyone here. And we're going to start passing this out. Yeah, so Dan, if you want to help out with that.
So everybody's talked about content tonight.
Here's a mic.
I think I can talk without it. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. So everybody's talked about content, and no one's talked about really a way. Can I talk down here more? And no one's really talked about a way to view content cost effectively. So Google originally invented the 2.0. Everybody's seen this. We were the first company to mass produce Google Cardboard for Google Education. We still sell between 10 and 40,000 sponsored Google Cardboard viewers every year. This one in particular was from Lavazza, the coffee company. The order actually came from Lavazza in Italy, and we made this piece. We only made 200 of them. This is digitally printed. You guys can see the quality of it when you want to look around for it. So that's the 2.0. We then reinvented that 2.0 into what we call our 2.0 Plus. The difference with the Plus is it's got adjustable lenses, so you can adjust your focus with it to redefine it. Again, all this stuff is on our website at unofficialcardboard.com. We went beyond that and we created what we call our elite viewer. So everybody's gonna get one of these today. If I don't have enough, if somebody doesn't have one and they want one, please, come and ask me, I'll be able to get you one. What this is a viewer that you just tear this side off on. So this comes apart, and it pops open. So all you do is you pop it open. The small flap is on the outside. Tuck the small flap in on both sides. Take your elastic closure, pop it in right here, and now you're in VR. So we can manufacture these, custom manufacture, custom print them for as little as one at a time. One of these will cost you $9.95 from our website. Since you're all here, we're going to be launching a new program probably in 2 weeks. I'm going to try to send out an email through the CHIVR Meetup here. And if you were at this event and you type in a code, CHIVR is going to be the code. You're going to be able to buy one custom viewer. It's like the Vista print model, where you can upload a digital image and put some copy on it. We'll give you one viewer for free, and you'll pay the shipping on it. Shipping is $2.63 to mail them. So we also make custom envelopes. This is for a university to send out the viewers in. This was all about content. This is all about that last spoke in the wheel to be able to view your content cost effectively. These sell obviously $9.95 for one, but they go as low as $2 when you get in up into some local quantities. So come to our website. Any questions?
Yeah, if you wanted like, let's say 100 of these, how much would they about?
I believe 100 are, I want to say $6.95 each. And then the turnaround time on direct print, which is 500 and less, I can turn around 500 and less in a week's time.
For certain customers and audience, if it was large volume, could you change the form of it and maintain like the function?
Well, it's a mathematical equation here between the distance of the lens to your phone. So
say fold into a mask.
And I could, my background is in packaging. So I've been in the packaging business for 30 years. And that's how I was able to develop this kind of stuff. If you got enough quantity and it's worth the time to do it, then you can design something for sure.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for handing these out to everyone. I really appreciate that. Awesome. So we've got more food, more drinks, demos. Go test it out. Go mingle. And thank you for coming out.